works, whether it is a broken mirror or whether it is humiliation or Dalit women talk differently. These figure in our syllabi across disciplines of political science, anthropology, history, sociology, so on and so forth. I think it's a very befitting first session that we have at this ACLF 2.0 edition that we have him opening the session. So if I also believe that this particular session on subaltern world making has a special significance, because quite often, though the subaltern, and in Kerala there's a special debate itself on whether, because when we translate subaltern to Malayalam, it becomes Kirala, and the huge debate that ensues whether the term Kirala, which denotes from below or belonging to a lower category or a lower hierarchy, itself is a term that needs that is appropriate for the or a good Malayalam equivalent for the term subaltern. But you also have a bigger problem where when the subaltern enters into the academia, it is often his or her or their experiences are often refracted through Savarna theory making. So what one advocates through this session, and what I expect through the session, is also that we need a replacement of Savarna theory making or Savarna theory building with Avarna or Dalit Bahujan world making and Dalit Bahujan theory building. So when we are looking at the way that subaltern studies have shaped the way in which subaltern is understood, and this is often not in his or her or their own terms, but refracted through Savarna imagery, refracted through Savarna language. So is the framework of subaltern studies appropriate or adequate to address the question of the subaltern?
Thank you, Malvika, for getting me to discuss with you certain issues that are... Can you hear me? Can you hear me in the last? Okay, thank you. So, I should also take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this LIT festival, Government Arts and Science College, Calicut. I would like to particularly thank Dr. Priya for taking a special trouble to get me here to talk to you this morning. You raised two important points, and I think those points are familiar in the public sphere of Kerala. I am always impressed by the enthusiasm that the Kerala public sphere shows in coming to different LIT festivals that take place almost every district of Kerala, which is so unique, so different in the whole of the country. And so I congratulate the very moment of literary fest that has been there for a very long time by now. I've been coming to some LIT festivals and speaking there. So thank you so much for the invitation, Dr. Priya. Let's address two questions that you posed. First question is about the very meaning of subaltern, the definition of subaltern. Whether it is a problematic term or it is not a problematic term. I think you can address these questions at two levels. At one level, at the level of your own background, your social background, your emotional, cultural background, you might find this term problematic because it says from below, which is fine. I mean, all these struggles that took place under the name of subaltern were struggles from below. So Professor Sumit Sarkar has written a wonderful book on this history from below. So that I don't think it is a derogatory term, because it's a term which actually connotes the movements, the assertions, the resistance of those people whose history has been ignored, whose history has been silenced. by those people, those historians who are from colonial setup or those who are from the upper echelon of the society. You call them Savarna. And Savarna is, I think, is a more less problematic term, a capacious term. So it is the struggle from below. So you are taking due notice of those struggles because those struggles are not properly archived by the official history writing, official historian. So I think to that extent, I think we should see that the term is not that problematic. The second question that you're raising is about who should write this history of the subaltern. Can the working people, peasants, landless laborers, working women, women in the kitchen, can they write their own history? And what are the conditions that make you write history or any documentation? You require a special leisure time to write history. A woman from the kitchen is 24/7 busy with kitchen and she hardly has any time to write. But somebody has to write for her, isn't it? See, isn't it? Otherwise, the laboring classes, women and Dalits and Adivasi would have written their own history. Because history writing or doing any theory is the work of those people who have leisure, who have time. You just don't have time. But still, as Eric Hobsbawm says, a great historian from England, there are intellectuals who are laboring intellectuals. While they work, while they labor, they also think. Any human being caught in the questions is always thinking. He is not devoid of thinking. Because thinking takes place around the questions. And questions that are social, gender, there are different kinds of questions. If you are not reflecting, if you are not thinking about those questions, you are not thinking being. You are basically fundamentally a thinking being because you think continuously about the questions. So the oral history has been captured by the subaltern. So they have made a very important contribution to history writing. But the problem was that they were actually criticizing, they are actually making a case for their own history writing against the imperialist, the colonial writing. And I'm not saying that they have covered everything. And I think they haven't covered the Dalit history clearly, as you know, you've been working on that. If they had done it, they wouldn't have missed Bhima Koregaon and others. So that is they have escaped. It has escaped the attention of the history writing. So, but there are some people now who are reflecting back on this. So you require those who are working in the field. They need to have some time. Now that there are people from this community, from these groups, I wouldn't say community, from groups, who have got some leisure, some time, some resource to reflect on. Like they are teachers, they are research workers, they are scholars. Should they be writing? They should. How long they should be writing on somebody's behalf? So that's the question. But historically, it is necessary for someone to write on somebody's behalf. But that someone should really get out. They don't get out. But should they be getting out? Is the question. And they shouldn't be getting out actually. They should stay there. But there should be counter-argument that look here, whatever you are writing is not adequate. What we will write is going to be adequate. And if you make that claim, you have to summon to your command resources from theory, from language to fill up the gap. And I do not know whether it is possible. I mean, whether it is happening. It is happening, but slowly. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think that was a very honest as well as a very powerful answer because I do believe that we need counter narratives for every narrative that has been created, particularly with regard to history. The second question, I think, is a very important question because whether it is in Kerala or whether it is throughout India or wherever you have South Asian Studies Department, there has been considerable scholarship on caste and community. And you have two terms, Dalit and Bahujan. Sometimes it's used interchangeably. Sometimes it's used as two distinct categories. So this delineation of the oppressed into Dalit and Bahujan. Is this delineation a valid or a viable kind of a delineation, particularly with regard to forging social solidarities and with regard to political movements in India?
The relationship between the Dalit and the Bahujan has been at the center of your attention, and it has been issued with some hospitality and with some hostility. It's both. It's both. I mean, the reception is both hospitable and hostile. I'm sorry. Don't record this one. Just edit. Okay. He's fine. So I'm sure that these two terms in Kerala situation, both political, cultural, social, and academic, are I think relevant. People are discussing about this. What is Dalit and what is Bahujan? Is Dalit subaltern? That's also a question. If you apply parameters like consciousness of resistance, that is one important parameters. Then weapons of the weak, James Scott. The people use, like particularly women use these weapons of the weak very, very efficiently and effectively. And I don't have time to go into these details, but we can discuss it later. You resistance, you are aware about your own existential situation. You are not a silent person, you are not a slave person. You are a person who is acting, responding to the questions that are emerging. And you are not trampled down. You are actually so alert. Your concept of Dalit is not given by anybody. It is a struggle concept. It has come up from struggle. People are given name to their own struggle as Dalit. Now, so it's not as the definition of Dalit has been so much popularized, they are trampled down, neglected. No, that is not the definition at all. I've been telling you several times that this is a very negative definition. There is a positive definition of Dalit. Now, what is the definition of Bahujan? Bahujan is a very abstract, very, very general term. And little ambiguity is there, the ambulance is there, as you very rightly said. But we are desirable to reach there. But can Dalit be Bahujan? Because it has the idea of future, it has its own utopia, it wants freedoms with minorities, Adivasi, women, OBCs, everybody. Do you want to replace Dalit with Bahujan is one important thing. Or you want to make Dalit as a part of Bahujan. Because Bahujan goes back to Buddha. Bahujan Hitaya, Bahujan Sukhaya. It goes as back as 2,500 years back. And it is actually being resurrected by scholars. And I'm familiar with this scholarly work of the Marathi scholars. They are using this term Bahujan. Bahujan is aspirational term. It is not definitional, it's aspirational. You are aspiring to become Bahujan. Bahujan is only a term which is based on what? You are Bahujan because you have freedom. You are Bahujan because you love each other in terms of friendship. In terms of your own concerns, you share, you participate. And this is more of an ethical term than political. But today it has become so political. Friendship is ethical, not political. Can you be friends in terms of the Bahujan? That is a distant dream. But it has become political, and some parties are there in the north, Bahujan, but these are all politically produced ideological framework which might really help them to get some electoral support. But the question is, can you really put some substance, some content into this Bahujan? And what is the substance? It's an ethical substance. Can you love each other? Can you really have respect for each other? On that, you need to actually change the definition of Bahujan. And I think there you can really remove the gap between the Bahujan and the Dalit. You can, you can actually introduce an overlap between the two. And I think that is another utopian idea I'm leaving, leaving with the audience. Thank you.
What a wonderful answer. That I believe that offers a lot of clarity to a lot of us who are working on both Dalit as well as Bahujan themes. Thank you so much for that. Now, since we are in a college, I think a particular question that has been haunting all of us as students and research scholars is the fact that for about 5 or 6 decades, we have Dalit Bahujan scholars producing literature, producing theory, and it's a voluminous corpus now. But unfortunately, even in a state like Kerala, or in several states of South India, most of the work that has been produced by Dalit Bahujan scholars, or what we refer to as critical caste studies now, or caste literature, they are branded as electives. They don't become part of mainstream curricula, but you will have in the entire curricula of English departments one paper on Dalit writing. Or in history, for instance, you will have one elective on Dalit Bahujan histories. So it is also one of the ways in which, or by which, Dalit Bahujan histories, Dalit Bahujan writings are siloized. So, and this enclavism or siloization also leads to sidelining. So how can we redress this situation where Dalit Bahujan writings become center stage?
I mean, this is a difficult question, I think. In our country and in our academic setup, colleges, universities, research centers, we are facing one important empirical challenge. That challenge is that every group, women, minorities, Adivasi, I mentioned those groups. Everybody is actually competing to become a central attention in the curriculum. Now, for those people who are actually drafting syllabus, producing a curriculum, for them, it's a challenge. How much can you really take? Is it proportion to their population, or to their specific problems? That is the big challenge. Now, you're right, women and Dalit and now minorities, where are they? They always find their presence on the last page of the seminar. If you are organizing a seminar, and Dalit session and women's session is on the last day. And I'm so, Priya ma'am, we should really thank her for putting us right in the front, 10 o'clock in the morning, yeah. So they are always on the last. I mean, okay, we will discuss as and when and if we get time. So these subjects are almost disposable. You can dispense with them. So that's a very problematic, painful, academic indifference. Now the question is not solved by saying so. You have to offer some important insights into this. That how to get them into the center of your curriculum and your syllabus framework. Unless you inflate, unless you actually interpret the problems of Dalit as the universal problem. I mean, can you say in this country, India has become free of caste, there is no caste in this country? And who are responsible actually for casteism? Dalit themselves are those who produce casteism on a everyday basis. Who is the source of? You are at the receiving end of that caste and untouchability experience. You are not producer. You are at the receiving end. If everybody is actually giving you depositing casteism into your basket, why can't you make this as a general universal problem? This is a pedagogical question that the teacher is supposed to teach. This is not an isolated, insulated, secluded question. It's not a question of women, Adivasi or Dalit. It is actually the question that is produced by somebody who is outside, who has a universal image. So I think unless you go into this insight, interpretative insight, this will be identity struggle at the level of drafting syllabus, framing curriculum. Can you give them a wider consciousness, those who are drafting? And you can also tell students that look here, the problem is not the problem of the Dalits. It's a problem of everybody else. I'm just saying, or women. You are giving all sufferings to her. As if she is responsible for that suffering, not the patriarchy. And patriarchy is universal, whether it is any religion, anything. Buddhism may be an exception to this. As you know, you are the historians of the ancient India, and how Buddhism is so radical in terms of women's emancipation. So see, this is, when students are in the classroom, they should think that this is not their particular problem. The problem that is even given to them by somebody who has a large presence, huge presence. Patriarchy is not specific to Kerala or Maharashtra. It's huge. It's there everywhere in the world, global. How it comes down to you, it comes down to you, or it comes down on you heavily. It's not an isolated problem. When you actually amplify the concern to the universal level, you will not fight for accommodation of this point or that point. But I don't know, it also happens, unfortunately, don't talk about our problems. No, sorry, they're not your problems. The problems that everybody's problem. That's why Gandhi wrote not for the Harijans. Gandhi wrote for the upper caste. Baba Saheb Ambedkar wrote for the upper caste, not for the untouchables. There are two ways up. You should really, it's a persuasion. Your curriculum has to be persuasive. Persuade. Those people who don't want to change, you must reason out with them. Tell them what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong. I think you have to actually, you have to have that thinking. It is not a rhetorical thinking that I will take 10% from you, 20% from them. It will be a hodgepodge of syllabus. No. Syllabus has to be universal. I don't know.
That's an absolutely insightful answer. I think I loved the analogy with gender studies and women's studies and caste studies, and that's exactly what is happening across universities. Thank you so much for that. The next question is about your recent work, Spheres of Injustice. In that work, if I understand correctly, you have situated injustice as being socially produced and mediated. And you've also argued that through the caste experience of humiliation, there is a certain normalization in India of injustice. But if you look at our judiciary now, and I ask this question also against the backdrop of one of our MPs, particularly an MP from South India, moving a constitution amendment bill for reservation of judges in the judiciary. When you're looking at justice, the theme of justice in India, with regard to a judiciary and our general sense of justice, we see that there is a Brahmanical rhetoric and Brahmanical grammatics to it. So how far has it pervaded our ideas of justice?
Since you have raised this, made a reference to my work on spheres of injustice. Now, I don't know, in your college, I think this college, are they teaching political science? Is there a political science in this college? Yes, she says yes. Are you teaching John Rawls' theory of justice? Okay, good. So there's a reference now. Now, we always teach, when I was student of JNU in 1977, I was taught the same thing. Theory of justice is almost a very unavoidable, inescapable book. You can't do without that. So I thought, this is something which is very affirmative. Justice is affirmative, not negative. Everybody wants justice. Everybody wants justice done by the state, done by PT, blah, blah, blah. Now I thought, what do people think at the level of their experience? The language of assertion, expression, articulation of people who are actually suffering is not justice. They don't start with justice. When a woman or a Dalit goes to the police station, what is the first? Is in Malayalam, what do you call injustice? Aniti. Aniti. So, aniti, abhav, atyachar, anyay. Everything starts from negative. If everybody starts from negative, every assertion starts from negative, how do I make sense of the positive? It doesn't. Positive justice is second expression. The first expression is anyay, injustice. We don't teach this. We do not think that injustice is a concept. It doesn't have any conceptual value. We don't think. Now, what is injustice? You ask any woman, she will tell what, in terms of space, in terms of time. So I'm using 3-4 terms now. Space, time, discrimination, everything. So all these negative experiences constitute into a concept. Discrimination, exclusion, alienation, everything. But we have no language to explain this. What we start mechanically from the tautological address, from the top. We start teaching John Rawls, we should teach them, but second expression. The first, what is injustice? That's the sphere. And the injustice is not at one place. It happens at different places. So my right, very multiple forms it takes. And we need to capture that multiple forms in the language, in the concept of injustice. So that is the thing. But now the second point you're raising is about, it's a very difficult time. It is the claim. If there are reservations anywhere, those people who are actually representing that particular community will handle justice very efficiently, progressively in favor of those people. Now this is the assumption. But there are people who are not Dalit, but their judgments are absolutely so important for the Dalit. So I think the question is, I agree that there should be you should give them some chance to get into the structure so that they can use justice in favor of those for whom the justice is meant. Because the other people are so callous. Sometimes they are also casteist. Those who are delivering justice, we have evidence, and Mohan Gopal has given so much of evidence. Mohan Gopal is from here, and he's done a wonderful work. So that possibility is there. I don't want to know what are these girls thinking about. What do you think about it? Please don't discuss among yourself. I feel distracted. Okay? Sorry for this interruption. I am a teacher till. I retired in 2018, but I want absolute attention. I am a Foucauldian discipliner, so sorry for this. I can watch you doing talking in. Anyway, don't. You remove this one. The question is, how do you ensure universal attitude in the judge, in the teacher, in the doctor, in policeman, anybody? You must really have that commitment to somebody's respect, somebody's injustice. You must remove that injustice. You must have that commitment. It's a universal commitment. It is a universal requirement. And you must do it because the law, constitution is given. You don't have to go over and above the constitution. It's there. And sometimes you need to interpret constitution in such a way, in a progressive way, that justice is not denied. But the reservations, about the reservations is a problem. That certain people are actually pathologically incapable of doing a good job in that's the problem. I mean, merit is not given, it's not automatic, it is cultivated. Labor, and you have the greatest example of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. So why don't you actually give some credence to this? But some prejudice, which is very deep, that certain people are below, is actually anti-intellectual, unethical, and I would say anti-epistemological. 3 words I am using. And I would be very happy to discuss with people who take objection to these 3 words. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing together your comments with Professor Justice Mohan Gopal's idea of justice itself in the context of the Indian subcontinent being an oligarchic Brahmanical sense of justice. Now, since you have touched upon Ambedkar, I think we can have a question on Ambedkar next. Now, in India for the last few years, we have a celebration of Ambedkar in terms of him being iconized. But at the same time, there is a disengagement with his writings, whether it is in the academia or in the popular sphere. So for students here and for people everywhere who is also watching us on the video, how far is Ambedkar's writings, Ambedkar's philosophy, his vision relevant for India, which is moving very dangerously towards majoritarianism, or maybe we have even reached there?
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying that those who want to see India advancing, and advance is not the right word, because in the word advance also involves power, force, thrust. So I won't use advance. It is very exclusionary. Only one person can advance and become Vishwaguru maybe, but that's fine, I have no problem. But I want everybody to progress. And progress word is so participatory. Babasaheb Ambedkar's the whole thrust is to produce India, to see India which is egalitarian, which progresses towards egalitarianism. And egalitarian is also not a complete, absolute thing. There is also a problem there, but at least within the given liberal framework, you need to hold on to egalitarianism because it is inclusive in terms of equality, in terms of equal request, in terms of equal participation and equal concern. His philosophy was very simple. You need to have, in that order, you need to have freedom. I'm just taking this order now. You need to have freedom. You need to have, for that freedom, you need to have equality. And for equality, you require justice. And above all, not fraternity, above all, Maitri, friendship. Maitri is a core value of Babasaheb Ambedkar. In that, you should not be able to, you should not be forced to shrink yourself from within. That is to say, if I'm walking in the street, whether I'm a woman or a Dalit, particularly women and Dalit, I should be walking in the street without the sense of shame, anxiety. How much anxiety do I have when I walk into the street? Will they really inflict caste language at me? Will there be somebody who will have a patriarchal masculine gaze at me? So I am not at all free. So that to actually loosen out, to free this public sphere, you require Maitri. I mean, this is so fundamental in Ambedkar. And Maitri, I don't know, but politics doesn't work on it. Politics require not Maitri, opposite of Maitri. Fractionalism, polarization. This is not going to really fulfill our Ambedkarian dream of enlightened India. I mean, his was Puraskrit. It's called Puraskrit is enlightened, inclusive India, not Bahishkrit. Bahishkrit is all those people who are in Dalit colonies and other things. From Bahishkrit to Puraskrit is the journey. How many of us, is there a route through politics or through civil society? Through colleges, through students, through the interaction between the concerned teachers and the concerned involved students. I mean, you don't have to look for a big picture. You can start right from the classroom itself, because classroom itself is so much asymmetry, so much fragmented with asymmetries. There is a silent corner, there is a vocal corner, there is a mixed corner, there is a difference between student and teachers. There is a stage is higher, and you are sitting down now. You are so like that. All those power asymmetries are there. Why don't you start from there? A Maitri should start from there. And you are actually practicing with Ambedkar. And but Ambedkar is not universalizable within quotes. He has to become universalizable, that is to say that his ideas are universal, all these ideas, but people do not really universalize them, do not practice them. I mean, Hindu Code Bill is not for Dalit women here. Hindu Code Bill is for every woman in this country, liberation movement bill. But tell me how many of them really latch on to this and say, look here, oh my God, Ambedkar did a great thing. Is there some kind of a ethical acknowledgement of this? Is the question that we have to address, not simply from the platform, political platform, but from the platform, wherever we are, right in the literary fest. I am raising this point.
Thank you. I think it is brilliant. I think it's a quote that we will always remember. I think it will be one of our takeaways from this session, that Ambedkar is universal, but we should make him universalized. We should make him universalizable, as in we should be practicing.
Universalizable is given the philosophy for everybody is good, not for any sectional good. That's why there are people that one philosopher has done wonderful things for everybody. He or she is adequate, and particularly he is adequate for everybody's questions. That adequacy is universalizability. And there is a debate, and we don't want to go into those debates now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you also for touching upon the question of Maitri. There's a scholar from Kerala, Dr. T.S. Shyamkumar. So he has been advocating for quite some time that we need to move away from this logic of coexistence to that of friendship. In fact, he has written a book titled Maitriyude Porul. Moving ahead, I think a question that a lot of us would love to hear.
That's just wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I'll also inform him of the same. A question that I think maybe a lot of us among the audience is waiting for is your take on the caste census. Professor Anand Teltumde, for instance, have been very skeptical of the emancipatory potential of caste census, and there have also been claims that it will lead to a further solidification and further reification of caste identities. What are your thoughts about the caste census?
By now, I think there's a lot of debate on whether we should have caste census or census based on caste or other categories. There's a debate already happening right from the very beginning, actually. The census, as we all know, the census census practice started from the Britishers, and I don't know if some of you know, census started from the criminals, sex workers, diseased people. Why were they taking census of these categories? Because they were also very smart in terms of really saving themselves from this. This is a menace. So they were preparing census. But then the census started from, caste census started from 1861. I mean, not simply, that was a rough census taken, but it went from 1861, 1871 proper census to 1931. That's the history of census. But the question is, it's not the history, genealogy of census, but what is the significance of having a census based on caste? One argument is that now, if you, and that is the current argument, and if you really take census based on caste, you will make people aware about caste. The assumption is as if they are not aware about it. Is that the case? Have they really got rid of caste? And we are infusing caste consciousness in them by documenting caste. I mean, this is a very weak argument. I mean, no one will buy it. I mean, caste doesn't go that easily because it has its own function. So, but in a liberal framework, parliamentary framework, you get your consciousness from caste census. Now, caste, when you get the consciousness of your size of the group, Dalit, tribals and others, do you want to get it only to attack others? The answer is absolutely no. You do not want to be empowered by getting the sense of your own caste number. Because you want to know where you are in terms of indices. Economic, cultural, political, social, culture and emotion, all that you actually, these are the markers that inform you where your position is, where your station is, where are you. Otherwise it's so ambiguous. There is no other media or medium to know. Why do they really prepare indexes now? All social index, SC, STs of course are happening, but your nutrition index, your health index, your all indexes, your actually happiness index, you know happiness index. So all kinds of indexes you're taking, and your moral indexes. And moral indexes is so important because Kerala really high, it is so high in terms of women's education, in terms of interpersonal relationship, and you issue migrants from outer country with respect, they are your guests. All that I learned from the studies done on Kerala. Wonderful. So you have all these very progressive ways of collecting information. Caste census is problematic for others because it actually also exposes them, minority controlling large resources, isn't it? So how do you actually account for this academically and intellectually and democratically? Shouldn't be, I mean, so you do not want to discuss about inequalities. And census is one marker that will actually draw your attention to this inequality. How many people are unequal? How many people are in jail? What is their caste? Just take the census. So I think census is important because it gives you a very concrete picture of your station, your own problems, your own scale of development, development, not the right word, progress. So you require that for assessment of your own progress. But you have to have parameters which are universal. inequality. Now gender census, how it's so important it is to know the status of women. Where are they? How do you know their status if you don't know? How many? It's the numbers. Besides, it has a policy implication as well. But what happens, in the state, you focus so much on policy and therefore you require census. That's one aspect of it. But the basis for going for census is your own station, economic, social, and other moral status. What is moral status? Are you a human being or not? When you are pushed beyond the level of human being, you are not considered as a human. So shouldn't we have that? Everybody civilizationally has a right, entitlement to be human. You treat some people, should we have census on how many people actually are killed in manhole? This is so, not having census. And why caste? Because those people belong to some specific caste. And that person who is killed in the manhole is not an abstract figure. He's a very concrete belonging to one caste. And you really require. It gives you some kind of, having a census on caste is to sensitize you on the questions, on human questions, and moral dignity as well. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about dignity anyway. This is the advertisement, by the way, tomorrow's class.
Thank you so much, sir. I think that offers a lot of clarity, and the point that you made, that census can also be an empowering tool because it helps those from, not just from marginalized background, but all of us to locate ourselves against other kind of social indices, more so than statistical visibility. I think that's an extremely valid point, something that a lot of scholars have overlooked. Similarly, one of the questions that has raised a lot of eyebrows, that has led to a lot of protests in Kerala and elsewhere, is the shelving of UGC's promotion of equity in higher education institution regulations. There was a lot of hue and cry against it. There was a lot of hue and cry to preserve it. Now, its aims, and I read out, were to bring in and institutionalize equity through measures such as reservation safeguards, inclusive pedagogy, and mechanisms to address discrimination. From the standpoint of critical caste studies, one of the domains that you have helped establish, how effective do you think regulatory frameworks, particularly ones which come from the government, the present government, would be effective in addressing epistemic as well as social and structural inequalities, particularly with regard to higher education?
So much of debate is happening, and I don't need to add anything more than this to say that when you put in place laws, when you put in place regulations, you create certain norms, you create them on the assumption that human being by nature is not innocent. Human being is capable of creating mistakes. And that's why all over the world, the history of writing constitution is led by this assumption that human beings are not to be trusted. They are problems. And that is why you have regulations. Now, those who are opposing these regulations are actually challenging this assumption that they are, by definition, by nature, they are very good. They don't want to commit any atrocity against anyone. No casteism is done. So, but that is not the case. If that was the case, then there wouldn't have been a constitution. Constitution has Article 17, 19, Article 17 anti-untouchability thing. So you all these anti-caste provisions there in the constitutions, because assumption is that people are likely to indulge into casteism of some kind or the other, and therefore the assumption is. Now, but then the regulation has regulation has come up as a result of the petitions done by Rohit Vemula's mother and Payal Tadvi's mother. I know it's a very tragic cases we know. Now, if there is evidence, you have to actually tighten your intervention strategies and your mechanism. If that was not the case, why did the same state made anti-caste laws so pernicious, so strong? 1955, 1965, all these anti-untouchability, 1955, 1965, 1989. And there are again, why? Because the society has not learned lessons. It is becoming more and more difficult. And the caste and untouchability practices are becoming much more intensified. So you require a much stronger mechanism to handle them. Because human nature is not friendly, it is not following Baba Sahib's message of Maitri. So this is the problem. The two questions. One is that why 1955 to 89? You have to question yourself. Have you really detoxified yourself in terms of casteism? And you don't want to share the blame. Oh, it is his problem, not mine. Well, there's another debate actually. You must collectively share the problems of caste.
I think that call for us to collectively share the issue of caste and find remedies for it, I think that's the only way out for us rather than regulatory frameworks. One last question and then we move to Q&A with the audience. And because I'm a feminist, I cannot actually help asking this question. Before the whole debates on intersectionality and before standpoint epistemology was ever conceived of, you had written a seminal essay titled Dalit Women Talk Differently. Now, years later, I think it must be almost 2 decades now. Years later,
95.
95, right. So, more than 3 decades.
More than 3 decades. Almost 3 decades, yes.
So now we have vocabulary, we have terms such as intersectionality and standpoint epistemology to address the different kinds of patriarchies experienced by different categories of women. So when you reflect upon your essay from 95, how do you find a convergence with the intersectionality debate, or do you want to go further than that?
Oh, interesting questions, I think. Thank you for raising these important questions. Am I really now a lot of discussion takes place in the classroom and outside the classroom, seminar halls and conferences, that there's a word called intersectionality that has become really very, very important, if not attractive word. So what is intersectionality? That there are social groups, they have their own problems of injustice, inequality, and so they are actually making their case for redressal. And so they have their own standpoint. And so I started with standpoint epistemology in 1995. Why Dalit women talk differently? Actually, Dalit women talk differently was the issue when mainstream, including the left women's group, were very rhetorical. I mean, you accommodate Dalit issue, that's it. So some kind of rhetorical accommodation of Dalit issue was not enough for Dalit women. So the point was not against any other women but left women. That was the target in Maharashtra. That standpoint, and then I also argued there, I don't know, I mean, I'm just repeating quickly. Dalit women have a distinct notion of patriarchy and the distinct notion of assault, physical assault. That people don't discuss. I mean, that I would really request you to really discuss that. What do I mean by social patriarchy? I use the word social patriarchy there. So I would say, therefore, by that definition, Dalit patriarchy is not at all democratic. I'm making this very, very forcefully. And there are people who discuss this, how can it be? So I can debate this, there's no problem. It's not. So what is social? Which also includes Dalit patriarchy as well. So please discuss social patriarchy. It's a universal term. But now that standpoint is being challenged by intersectionality. The problem with intersectionality is two. One is all those groups. If you are some of you are teaching this in the classroom, please discuss this. By, I wouldn't say nature, but by some kind of a practical political force, they begin to compete with each other. They actually participate in some kind of a marathon to say that my dukkha is greater than your dukkha. And they run. This is not the way you deal with it. Yeah. And second problem, what they ignore is this. The ground on which they run for marathon is the same of inequality, and if you want to say capitalism. It is that ground. When the ground is same, why can't your question be same? Your questions are different. And this is all, and this is nobody but is a black thinker who's done this intersectionality again. Kimberly. So, I don't think, and people really are happy funding you for intersectionality. Because you begin to really discuss things in fragmentary manner than in cohesive manner. And that's why Dalit Bahujan Solidarity is based on this actually. If you want to really achieve this. I'm just preempting your question. So why can't we do it? That's my submission. Rethink about it. Okay? Thank you very much. Yeah.
I do believe that what you just said, I think that makes us question and to reinterpret the ways in which we have so far understood intersectionality, and that also goes back to your answer of the second question on the Dalit Bahujan convergence, whether it's possible. I would love to sit and talk with one of my most favorite, one of my most adored professor till evening today, but I do think that we also have to give the audience some time to discuss their thoughts and maybe questions with Professor Gopal Guru. So if there are any questions from the audience.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Hello, sir. I find myself so lucky to be here, watching you, witnessing you, having been read you for a long, long time, being inspiring us. My name is Dr. Mahima. I'm working at Government College Madapalli. I've been a faculty here. And my question is, how threatening and danger is to consider this electoral SIR as an heterotopic space of deviations of discarded identities, especially when it comes to Dalit, marginal, and the immigrant identities. Thank you.
This is the deviant, right? You mean diversity or deviant?
Deviance.
Deviant, okay.
Deviance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so in power politics of today's kind, you have this lurking danger of perpetuation of diversities, and diversities actually draw them very close into their own cocoon, and so there is no possibility of fighting that cocoon, coming out of that cocoon. And if you try to talk in the universal language, people will see to you that you don't speak in terms of the universal language. So the deviation becomes the virtue for this politics, this kind of politics. Whereas it is for the emancipatory politics of everybody, it's a vice. It's not a virtue. So how do you tackle this? You have to tackle this at the level of the people and tell them perfecting deviant consciousness is not good for them, not good for their future. You must at least open up to your neighbor with certain amount of appeal that look at this is not good for both of us. Let us close the ranks for good. But this doesn't happen. So much, social media and other things, they actually inflate it so much because their own TRP is based on this. Unless you actually glamorize, tantalize, make a spectacle out of your tragedy, you will not be happy. So there is a call, internal call. Stop it. And who will stop it? Political parties. Some political parties may not stop it, but you must take a lead at your own level because you think there is something wrong. There is inherently something wrong in this. When you are teaching in the classroom, I don't know whether you have freedom to do it. In Kerala, of course, you have, I guess. But other places, you don't have that freedom, you want to talk. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? You can also ask in Malayalam. I can translate it into English for you. The organizers are telling me that we have reached the end of our time. Let me once again thank Dr. Priya, principal of this college, the organizing committee, and the students and our wonderful audience. And I do believe that it was a very befitting start to ACLF 2.0. Thank you so much, Professor.
I enlist my thanks with you. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your patience and audience. Thank you
so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Gopal Gubru, sir. And thank you, Malaviya Bini, ma'am. Next session. Indian തെരഞ്ഞെടുപ്പ് യുഗം, ഇന്ത്യൻ തെരഞ്ഞെടുപ്പ് ജ്ഞാനേഷ് യുഗം. ചർച്ചയിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നവർ ഡിംബി ദിവാകരൻ, ജി ഗോപകുമാർ, ജയപ്രഭാഷ്, ഏകോപനം സത്യൻ വി.ടി. ഇന്ത്യൻ തെരഞ്ഞെടുപ്പ് ജ്ഞാനേഷ് യുഗം. ശ്രീ ജി ഗോപകുമാർ. ഇന്ത്യയിലെ പ്രമുഖ രാഷ്ട്രീയ ശാസ്ത്രജ്ഞനും പ്രശസ്ത തെരഞ്ഞെടുപ്പ് വിദഗ്ധനുമായ ഡോക്ടർ ഗോപകുമാർ സാറിനെ വളരെ ഹാർദമായി ഈ പരിപാടിയിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. കേരള കേന്ദ്ര സർവകലാശാലയുടെ മുൻ വൈസ് ചാൻസലറായി സേവനമനുഷ്ഠിച്ച അദ്ദേഹം ഇന്ത്യൻ രാഷ്ട്രീയം, തെരഞ്ഞെടുപ്പ് പഠനം, ജനാധിപത്യ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങൾ എന്നിവയിൽ സമൃദ്ധമായ അക്കാദമിക് ഗവേഷണ പരിചയമുള്ള ഒരു വ്യക്തിത്വമാണ്. ശ്രീ ഡിംബി ദിവാകരൻ, മഹാരാജാസ് കോളേജിൽ നിന്നും പൊളിറ്റിക്കൽ സയൻസ് വിഭാഗം അധ്യാപകൻ, പൊളിറ്റിക്കൽ